Are you familiar with the podcast Triggernometry?
No.
It's these two British guys.
I'm familiar with technology.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is Triggernometry for sure.
Then I know it.
They're these two white British guys who I previously thought were like presenting themselves as centrists.
Okay.
But it turns out that they're like more right wing than I thought they were.
Oh, wait, can I see their faces first? I mean, I'll see them. I think
Hasan
I do know these
welcome
guys.
to Triggernometry.
Nice to be here, guys.
Why the big
guys?
So I did their podcast, okay, because they were in Los Angeles.
The guy on the left looks like he's being blinded.
Yeah.
I saw Finkelstein, I think maybe a clip where he was on this, and that's the only reason I think I've seen them though.
So you thought they were centrists? No, I thought they were like center right. I thought they were like masquerading as centrists, but they're right wing. But I think their audience is like more right wing than the way they even present
Triggernometry? No.
But basically, I'm just breaking the set over here. Jesus Christ. Act like you've been here, Brendan.
Let me stay for lunch and then I'll go.
Yeah. But I did their podcast and we talked about a bunch of different issues and they got I think it was a fun and relatively productive conversation, but let's take a look.
Italy's Mussolini and Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany were ruthless fascist forms of governance. My fear is that that is where capitalism inevitably leads. There's too much instability, there's too much chaos. We need to restore order.
Is there a country that's done socialism the way that you like?
I would say China is probably the closest, I would say, to an example that we should follow.
This was very frustrating for a lot of right-wing accounts on Twitter.
I can imagine.
Which did not actually provide any sort of like counter narratives or whatever, but instead simply presented it and then got mad. New streamer Hasan Piker says communist China is the best example of a country that the United States should learn from and model after. Constantine Christian, is there a country that has done socialism the way that you like? I would say China is probably the closest. That is probably the closest I would say to an example that we should follow and lessons that we should learn from. And all of the counters are basically Cernovich talking about it's okay to platform again.
Wait, the police shut down his live stream.
Yeah, it's so funny how they never go to places they love so much. He was actually just there, and the Chinese police shut down his live stream. Again, a thing that didn't happen. Okay, China is no longer purely communist. Its commie government has allowed capitalism to flourish in China.
Yeah, heard about that.
Comrade Piker.
Autism Capital.
Yeah, Autism Capital. Comrade Piker is me and she's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a
congrats on that, by the way.
Yeah, that was very cool. I just wanted to know if there's anyone who doesn't agree with what Hasan says. You just have to stop and see the enormous progress that China has made. Young people have a house before the age of 29, and 90% of people have a house. In the United States, you have a house at the age of 38, and it's a very low percentage. And then people yelling at him.
I love all these blue check replies. They're just so well written.
But unpopular opinion, this was my favorite though. Unpopular opinion is that Hasan is right on this. I'm pretty sure China's had a low level to qualify for. Wait, what? Oh, never mind. The ones that are the ones that are my favorite are like, yeah, that's right. We should take all of the wrong lessons from China,
right?
In terms of like social repression or in terms of like dealing with separatist movements or whatever. Like they literally like, hell yeah, we need to be an ethno state or whatever the fuck they assume China is. Their post game, they wish they'd gone harder on you. Oh damn,
really interesting. We also sat.
Wow, that's funny that they wish.
What did they do?
Let's get a flavor of what they actually said.
Communism in America.
I think that communism would be most likely an international thing. It'd be like the Star Trek universe.
You think Reform Party?
I think Reform Party, as it stands currently, is a nascent fascist parliamentary group that hasn't reached its full potential yet.
Relax. This isn't an ad. If you're not a fan of ads but love Triggernometry, join the thousands of
Okay, I'm skipping this stuff. All right.
.uk or click the link in the description of this episode.
Hasan Piker, welcome to Triggernometry.
Nice to be here, guys.
Why the big sigh?
We'll see. We'll see how this goes.
Yeah.
I'm getting cooked right now.
Yeah.
For those of you at home watching, And this has got to be extra weird for you guys because you're British, and this is what the sun looks like normally.
Yeah, no, it's nice to know.
Yeah.
We are enjoying it. I'm sorry about the sun. This is not deliberate. We're not trying to
really
cook you,
deserves it.
literally.
Really.
But
quite
welcome
the
to the show.
It's hot as dude. We were in the morning. It was like 80 degrees.
Whose
and I'm-
idea was it to shoot on the surface of the planet from pitch black?
I don't know. They're British. This is like a very interesting opportunity for them to see the sunlight, I think.
Tell us a little bit about you. Like you obviously have got a massive Twitch channel. You're very successful streaming. Twitch is a gaming platform, but you talk on there, and that's what people follow you for. How did you get there? What's been your journey through life?
I started my professional media career, I guess, as a nepotism recipient at my uncle's 26-person YouTube startup media network. I feel like calling it a media network is interesting because, like, at that time, at that point, it was smaller than like a mid-tier podcast, you know? But I started there because I just wanted to not live in New Jersey. I wanted to live in LA. And that's where the Young Turks headquarters were. And I, much like virtually all of my peers, came out of college with a double major, great marks, and no job prospects whatsoever. So I was like, all right, I'll just start off my journey here, and it'll allow me to be in LA. Right?
Let's skip the introductions. It's boring. You've already heard it a million times over.
And you mentioned progressive values and that being something that's important to you. What are progressive values, would you say?
I think progressive values, for me at least, are founded around empathy first and foremost, to try and uplift everyone's material conditions to the best of our ability, and focusing on protecting those who need protection, and simultaneously advancing a cause of the way I think about it, advancing the cause of unlocking the potential of every single person, no matter where they are. Because right now, there are probably billions of brilliant people that never actually get the opportunity to unlock their true potential.
See, I'm using I thought they were more centrist, so I'm using like centrist terminology. Be like, there's a lot of potential out there.
Right.
And
let everyone be what they can be.
Yeah. Like, who knows if the next like math wizard is actually stuck in a village somewhere, right? Like,
whereas is their position actually? Well, what if there aren't those people?
But
what if humanity?
I can't speak to
worthy?
their perspective, but like I can say that their audience does not believe that there's unlimited potential in the third world at all. The audience was like, "Oh, you're." Idiot.
Do they start mixing it up with you, or is it kind
a
of
little
this
bit?
weird
Yeah.
tension?
No, it goes from me just like expanding on my position.
Yeah.
It turns into more contentious stuff like around this part, and then there's even a classic like explain this meme about Luigi Mangione, where it's like, well, what do you mean? Luigi Mangione, you've said free Luigi Mangione, and I'm like, well, you know, what's interesting, I did the same thing that I did with Ross Douthat. I don't know if you guys saw that one, where he was like, he tried to do the same shit to me, where he was like, well, you're pro Luigi, you're pro Luigi, you're pro Luigi, and I was like, look, listen, like I think it's more interesting to think about why in a country like America that Luigi Mangione was received the way that he was, and it shows that like it's almost universal, the pain that people have felt about private health care
because of where they're born. Like, they might be born in Sudan, in a village that is being overtaken by the RSF. They might be born in India to an impoverished neighborhood and are not going to have the access to education, and therefore be able to truly revolutionize whatever sector they might be interested in revolutionizing. And I think that's what I want to do.
And what do you think is the way to, because I think that's probably something the left and right actually agree on in my experience, you know, the center left, the center right, they're kind of moderate. But I suppose the disagreement probably is about what you think is the way by which that happens. So the right might say, well, the answer to that is capitalism, right? I imagine you don't agree. So how do you think those things get, those people who don't currently have opportunity both in this country, in other Western countries, but around the world, what's the mechanism by which they get those opportunities?
I think creating a robust base of support, like a minimum social safety net for all, is the way to do it. And there are many different ways of achieving that result. I don't think capitalism has been able to do that. What I mean by that is capitalism still revolves around the inherent contradiction of at its most reductive way to put it, someone's got to clean the toilet. And in an effort to make sure that there is always going to be people that are wage laborers, there is this dynamic where we can't
20 minutes
advance
20 minutes until food gets here.
Humanity too much. This plays itself out in the international scale in unequal exchange, where if we were to allow a lot of the third world to develop to a certain degree, then things would be far too costly. We wouldn't get the cheap materials and the cheap natural resources that we need to extract so that we can have an iPhone for the reasonable price of $500. Or, I mean, even that's increasing now. I personally think that
they got really mad at me for saying iPhones are not $500. Like that was
like $900 or whatever.
Yeah, they were so like they I think everything that I'm saying here, they just did not listen to at all, and they just hyper focus on like
this was like listening to a child try to. Man, this is a.
Yeah, they're like, oh, dude, rich socialist hypocrite, you idiot. It's like, oh, dude, you say you hate capitalism.
I thought that it would be a real, like Athens.
I thought there would be substantive discussion in the YouTube comments. I
stopping
did.
endless and needless and cruel militarism in the global South, and allow these places to develop, extend an open hand to them, that we would allow society to flourish in ways that we previously have not foreseen.
I guess your point about cleaning toilets is interesting, because something we've addressed a lot on this trip with guests right, left, center, etc., is the incredible wealth inequality and the speed at which the gap is, that's growing. There's a big problem. People on the right don't want to admit it, and it's true. But on the other hand, someone is always going to have to clean the toilets, right? Like, we have a pretty big safety net in the UK.
That's the argument.
And what that's mainly done is trapped a lot of people in a place where they don't have to
literally
work,
what you said.
And they then
is the baby's first argument.
Yeah.
And then
No,
he's
he
like,
just
"Since
turned
you
around.
say that, let me pose a different question. The exact same question.
Yeah, which is someone has to clean the toilets. Like, how do you suggest we clean the toilets? And it's like, okay, well, I mean, I'll get into it here, but it's like the point is, the person who's cleaning the toilets can have more comforts in their lives, even if they're doing that.
therefore don't. And also,
Because it's
you
still
talk
a
about
necessary part of labor, regardless.
important people from other countries to work for less. Kind of the consequence of that is it suppresses wages for the people in the country as well. So who would clean the toilets if we...
So, great question. Let me address the wage depression aspect of this, because this is the one area where sometimes I hear Tucker Carlson talk about it, and there's like some nuggets of truth in there. Because yes, importing labor into the country will always depress wages in the absence of good regulation. And good regulation in that format would be demanding wage parity, and also not creating any other external factors that actually cause you to have a more servile labor force. What I mean by this is, I want to use the example of H-1B visas. The reason why H-1B visa system exists on paper is because there are certain highly skilled positions that, as it stands, our American companies are unable to fulfill. They're not able to fill those roles with the domestic labor force, right? That's the on paper. In practice, of course, it creates a more pliable labor force that you're bringing in, oftentimes from highly skilled countries that are still desperate, even if there is higher wages on average on the H-1B visa program, because if you lose your job, you get deported. Nobody wants to get deported, so they will do everything in their power to stay and work as hard as they physically possibly can. So this creates an environment where I think our bosses, our capital owners in America, are like, why would I get an American worker who is in comparison to an Indian worker that's coming into the country that is desperate to keep this job? Why would I hire the American worker? I can pay the same fee to the Indian worker, or even a higher fee, as a matter of fact, to the Indian worker, because I know that he is going to work harder than the American labor force. So there is this competition. The way to solve that competition is through regulation. If the workers that were coming in from poorer countries were coming in with the knowledge that they are not going to be immediately deported, for example, and they have wage parity with the domestic labor force, this would actually make American companies think twice before hiring someone just as a replacement for the American worker, because they wouldn't get any additional benefits as a boss. They wouldn't get the additional benefit of like, I'm going to work you to the bone, right? Because I know if I fire you, you're gone. You're gone out of the country and you want to be here. So that is a regulatory mechanism that we never implement in this country, because we our capital owners actually enjoy the two-tiered labor structure that we have here.
And come back to the who cleans the toilets, even when there's a social welfare system.
I think that ultimately there's going to be people that fulfill these roles no matter what. And increasingly with automation and with AI, we're getting to a point where the route tasks are already being delegated to robots to begin with. So the way I see it is there's always going to be someone that is tasked with either overseeing it, if it's a robot doing it, or directly doing it. But since it's an important factor in the commodity production, because someone has to engage in sanitation, I think it's much more valuable to ensure that they have a sense of autonomy and that those positions are hired and have enough replacement labor force so that they do less hours in general and still get a decent amount of pay, and so that they can still feel human and have some sense of autonomy in the labor force where they can do that job and still make an honest living and be able to feed their family and also have some free time on the side to pursue whatever hobbies they want to pursue.
So the way to achieve that would be like what, a really high minimum wage, or like what's the way to get there? Like, because I agree with the idea that people who are working every kind of job should have free time and make a good living. The question is, how do you do that? Because in a market economy, what you are paid is a function of what you produce, right?
Yeah. Well, I think in a market economy, what you are paid should be what you produce. I don't think that that's how it works in the market economy. I think in the market economy, your replaceability is what determines your wages, especially if you are
I'm like walking him through the steps of this is supposed to be his like their bread and butter, right? Like they're pro-capitalist and they're like, oh, you're in a market economy, your wages are determined by what you produce. No, that's not how that works at all.
I mean,
that's kind of the problem.
It sounds like he's about to bust out the guns and butter on you. You know, like it's just like it's so like limp 101 stuff. I mean, it's a little. I mean, it is kind of fun that they gave you the space just to make this pitch.
Is it roughly this cordial?
No.
Is that the thing? Oh, okay.
No. There is more back and forth.
Because I'm curious what they said after the fact when they were like responding to their commenters.
There is really not much pushback on this stuff, honestly. Right. And I think it's because there's not really. I don't leave a lot of room to breathe with the argument that I present.
So that's how it works in the market economy. It's replaceable by a non-domestic labor force, for example. That depresses your wages even further on the domestic front for the citizen labor force. So I think you're right, though. In the market economy, your output should be the determining factor. That's actually a socialist position, ironically enough. Not all socialists are against the market. And I would say that the output is the most consequential factor in that regard. I agree. What that means, however, is that if the company is actually, for example, increasing its output and therefore generating more revenue overall, then everyone down to the most replaceable aspect of labor, which would be sanitation in this regard, should still get paid a just wage, like fair compensation. Minimum wages is one way of doing it as a Band-Aid solution. I mean, but there are Nordic countries, for example, where there is no minimum wage, because the minimum wage would ironically be a depressing factor on the overall average wages that people get. How have they achieved this, though? They've achieved this through sectoral bargaining. They've achieved this through robust unions and labor participation in these wage negotiations. And that is the reason why they don't need to have a minimum wage. The minimum wage in and of itself is a big point of contention in the United States of America and a lot of other Western countries, only because our labor union participation in the United States is at less than 10% right now, which is unimaginably low. It's lower than countries that we have dominated, like Chile, where we rewrote their constitution basically and wanted to unleash a wave of neoliberalism.
Okay. Oh my God, this is
the
awesome.
U.S. did support the Pinochet coup, but Pinochet's 1980 constitution was written primarily by Chile's own military regime and conservative Chilean lawyers such as Jaime Guzman.
Yeah, after we installed him.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of how that...
Yeah.
That's
I
sort of the
got
bang for your buck. Bang for your buck.
Fact check!
Brother.
I just got fact checked, buddy.
See, I would love to see... Do you know... I would love to see more of these. I wish they would have
said that to my face.
Yeah.
Because that would have been a much more entertaining conversation, no? Like,
is their model like they kind of give the, patient and even open-minded across the table, but then later on they put all this stuff in, and then in their next episode,
I don't know.
Like,
this is the first time I'm watching this. So
I mean, it is,
I guess,
I don't know. I think it's kind of bitch made to do, because this also isn't a fact, like...
That's a Jubilee move.
Exactly. Like, it's just so stupid. Like to do and like also kind
it's
of
like
obvious.
doesn't even dispute anything.
Exactly. That's the point. It's not like what that is not an effective. It's not a good debunking.
The guy on the right reminds me of kind of like a cleaned up Paul Joseph Watson. You know what I mean?
This guy?
Yeah. He looks like if was that his name? The guy you said imagine
Paul
more
Joseph
surprise.
I get Gary V, but
okay. Well, there could be a lot going on.
The hands of a dictator like Pinochet. Even in that country, there's still
John
15% labor union
the
participation, so it's still higher than the United States of America, which is crazy to me.
If you've been fresh story ground,
see what I mean?
outlets empathy, ground
We should do this more in our show.
Particularly
Now
talk
he
about
gets in with
low-skilled labour. So for context, my mother is a Venezuelan immigrant to the UK. When she was in the UK, she was a childminder. There was no minimum wage. My mum, roughly, I remember earning £2.20 an hour. There were no pension rights. So thankfully, like, I help my parents out. My dad helps my mum out, so she's not destitute. But that's what my mum's position would be if she didn't have me or my father. As somebody who is from Venezuela, I worry when people mention socialism because I've seen what's happened to my country. How would you assuage the fears of people like me or people who come from a Cuban background who've seen the socialist dream, as it were, descend into authoritarianism?
I'm much nicer than I normally would be.
First and foremost, I would say that all countries, to varying degrees, engage in authoritarianism in general. It's just something that it's a function of the government. It obviously has the capacity to get out of hand due to external factors in many instances, like combating much more powerful forces that want to cause instability in your country. It's not a justice.
This also frustrates liberals when you say that. Like, it's just every country is like here in America, the rules that we have around age of consent is very authoritarian for Ellen Dershowitz, right? If you want to f kids and the rules in the rule book say you can't f kids, that's authoritarian. It's just justifiable, right? If you don't want to pay taxes and the IRS says you're going to jail, that's technically authoritarian for a person who doesn't want to pay taxes.
And recently, when I was doing that show with Felix, he said he once spoke to it was a writer who someone kind of asked them what their politics were. And he did not, I will not include the name just as he did not, but he said, my politics are anti-authoritarianism. And it's just like, you know, dude, you're 45 years old.
Yeah, that is like epic, brother.
You got to get a little.
I mean, it's also like, also the authoritarian thing is like, everybody is like, oh, no, but look. When I see the movies about Jim Crow and stuff, right? It's all in black and white. Therefore, it's in the past, not a problem now. Ipso facto, you're wrong, brother. That's what, I just hate the smugness of that shit.
Well, I'm curious if this guy takes your answer.
Let's see.
More or less.
For it, but it is analysis in terms of like why these guys engage in the actions that they do in terms of suppression of all dissent or even censorship and sometimes even jail time. And the example I always use is the United States of America, not only in the Cold War, but even preceding the Cold War during World War I and World War II. Actually had a practice of jailing all conscientious objectors, for example, who said, I don't want to fight in this war. They were like, all right, well, this is a world war, sucks this up, you're going to jail. One of the famous examples is Eugene Debs, a socialist who actually ran from prison and I think achieved like 1.3 million votes at the time, which was probably the most electoral success socialists had ever achieved. He was a conscientious objector of World War I, which was the international Marxist position at the time. There was some deviation there. So I see it in a similar vein when these countries also engage in authoritarian actions, suppressing dissent, censorship, or trying to manage this dynamic of trying to continue doing governance while at the same time they have to like make sure that they're avoiding American intervention or Western intervention in general. As far as the fears that people have, assuaging the fears that people have in terms of what they've seen in their countries, whether it be Venezuela or Cuba, I think each country is different. Each successful and unsuccessful revolution is different. And I think it's important to understand the lessons and the failures, as well as some of the areas of success that these countries have been able to implement. Avoid the failures and try to focus on the successes, and hopefully you'll be able to have a long-standing and relatively happy form of governance.
I mean, I take your point as to the conscientious objector, but you look at Venezuela, for example, and then the reason I'm using it is because that's the example I know best. Yeah. You know, you've got rigged elections. You've got politicians who go up against Maduro. They're either thrown in jail, as in...
Juan Guaido famously never got a day in the sun.
I don't think I mentioned that one of the biggest failures of Maduro was... and even Chavez really was not
cracking down harder.
Was not punishing the dissenters enough. Ironically,
you can tune into TV channels. At least back when I knew people who lived there, and there's people bashing The government bashing. They bashed Chavez.
Yeah,
they bashed
as
Maduro.
a matter of fact, big problem with all the grocery store chain owners and the Chamber of Commerce they have in Venezuela that ended up actually overthrowing Chavez. Once upon a time, they didn't get sufficiently punished at all. They continue to operate as though they wanted to internally in the country. I think that might have even been a mistake. I'm just saying. Because I don't think America would ever allow that to happen, is what I would say if we didn't live under the second Trump administration after he successfully unsuccessfully pulled off an insurrection, and then we didn't punish him at all. And then now he's president, and all of the pedophiles that did January 6th are free until they do more pedophilia. And
in which case they get freed again.
Yeah, in which case, yeah, exactly. You did
literally
January 6th.
the only actual way out for like a January 6th person now is suicide by cop.
Yeah, no,
like,
for
literally
sure.
you have to be like that guy. You remember that video? This guy, it was one where like the cop was like, "Do not reach for like whatever," and the guy just immediately.
No, yeah, the only way.
Whoa! And
the only way they see punishment is when they reach for an officer's service weapon.
Exactly. Like it's so like it's like that is the only way that you can like suffer a negative consequence anymore.
Yeah.
The case of Leopoldo Lopez, solitary confinement for 2 years, or you have, I think it's Corina Machado, who got nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, but she is currently in hiding in her own country because she knows the moment that her whereabouts are known, she's going to get.
That's bad governance. How come she's literally like there is
She's
no
only
world
calling for an invasion of her own country.
And saying it's great that like they're lasering boats off the coastline. Like you can't do that anywhere. You know what I mean?
She's calling for an invasion of her own country
by the most powerful country on the planet that has all the ambition and has tried to do coups in the country that she's a part of. It's crazy.
You know what I loved when they announced that she got the Nobel Peace Prize, and the immediate reaction from the White House was, "This bitch, I cannot believe the DEI Nobel Prize."
Yeah.
Like not, I guess, realizing
didn't give it to daddy.
Yeah. Okay. They were really pissed. It was so like Stephen Chung, the like White House press secretary, whose job is to like send edgy tweets. Yeah. He was like bugging out.
He's not the only one.
Machado was asking Israel to invade Venezuela. Israel, please save me.
Thrown into jail may not be seen again.
You're my only hope.
I'm not going to defend Maduro, but I would say that the logical through line, and it's important to understand the opposition's logical through line in this instance, is that these are forces that are very directly working with the United States of America that have tried to facilitate coups. Even had an unsuccessful one all the way back in 2002 with Chavez, and numerous other instances. Openly talked about implementing coups under the first Trump administration, and is openly now waging war, or at least threatening to wage war with Venezuela right now, encircling the entire coastline of Venezuela with some of the most sophisticated weaponry known to man. In that regard, I think they see it as treason. I would go so far as say, in a similar scenario in the United States of America, I think, and this is not even a one-to-one dynamic because America is the most powerful nation on the planet, but China is getting up there, right? Let's see if China had, if China had encircled the United States of America, and let's say in this hypothetical, I'm like very clearly someone who is going to China and talking to the CPC and saying like, we want Chinese intervention in this country because I hate Donald Trump, please.
Suspicious.
I think in that regard, America would probably treat me in the exact same way, if not in a worse way, ironically enough.
But would they throw you in jail for trying to run democratically? I don't think personally that they would.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
Are you serious? I don't think they would do that.
Like, come on, man. Come on. Like, I would definitely, they would kill me. Like, I don't even think that did you wear that shirt to push your merch? Yes. And it's a very nice shirt. And you can get it at ideology.shop.
Would I think. You think the American government would not throw me in jail if I was in a comparable scenario where China had encircled the United States of America and I was saying, I want to run democratically. I want to be, and I'm demanding that China intervene. I think they would do the same, if not worse, for sure. Because like I said, it's all a matter of the conditions on the ground. With respect to Eugene Debs, as I was talking about before, America felt threatened even at that time.
You're talking about wartime.
Yeah.
This is not a fair comparison, in my opinion, because
wartime
is wartime.
No, how is that not a fair comparison?
I'm curious what he's about to
It's not a fair
drop.
comparison
It's about survival. Britain suspended elections during wartime, right? Like
America didn't actually. They did. They even during the Civil War.
But Britain did. America wasn't in war in the same way that Britain was.
That's why I said during the Civil War.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's fair. But again, it's different. I guess you said something interesting because, I was born in the Soviet Union, so we both have direct experience of socialism in various shapes and forms. You talked about, there's positives and there's negatives. So is there a country that's done socialism the way that you like?
I would say that I am hypercritical of all forms of governance, including the American one. I think that's not a surprise to you guys.
I'm left,
right? And in that same vein, I think there is critiques to apply to all forms of governance, even socialist ones.
Yeah.
And as far as like getting closer to what I think has been relatively successful, because if ultimately the point of government is to improve the material conditions of all people to the best of your ability, it's not always going to be perfect, but when you are getting, I don't know, the poorest people, the poorest or the dispossessed masses out of a situation where they were servile to landed gentry, or they were peasants from an agrarian society, or they were dominated by the landlords, but then ultimately they were able to come into modernity and become like a powerhouse, an industrial powerhouse that is competitive with the largest superpower on the planet. I would say if that's the point of good governance, and I think you guys might agree with me on that, I would say China is probably the closest. And there are still plenty of failures within the Chinese system as well, plenty of issues within the Chinese system as well. But that's probably the closest, I would say, to an example that we should follow and lessons that we should learn from. This is something that I talk about quite a bit. Ironically enough, we only utilize some of the most repressive elements of Chinese governance here in the United States of America, especially in the second Trump administration, and none of the good stuff. We don't have any high-speed rail. We don't have any even development. There is seemingly nothing to look forward to in America in terms of economic prosperity, in terms of overall health of society, in terms of scientific achievements. And I think a lot of younger people also feel the same way, where they feel like there's nothing to look forward to here. And I'll give you guys an example from the UK. I remember seeing this TikTok of this guy that goes around and is like asking young British people, would they serve in the British military? And I am not even remotely nationalistic by any measure. I don't care about those sorts of things. But I think it's important to understand, like, it's a good way to see the temperature of society. And a lot of the young British people were like, no, why would I fight for England? Why would I fight for the UK when it seems like my government's not even fighting for me at all? And
see, the reason that a lot of them will say that, though, is it's not so much about that we're not like China in terms
I just realized I'm the one who brought up UK, which was a major mistake, because as soon as UK gets mentioned, they turn the conversation to, well, they don't want to fight for the UK because of Musliman.
Wait, let me see what they where this guy
Islamic
goes.
Sharia is the reason.
Okay.
of building high-speed rail, although that is a big issue in the UK.
Yes.
I agree with you. The main reason is they feel like they've been let down by mass immigration that's eroding the values of their country.
Yeah.
And of course, this is where I think...
Except I did say why they didn't want to fight, and none of them said it's because of Muslims.
Well, no, but you have to understand, it's the Sharia.
Yeah, none of them were like, oh, it's because the UK is a Sharia
Their
controlled
pride
country.
is hurt, so they don't want to go fight for Britain because there's too many Muslims inside of Britain.
Well,
now.
no, but it's because they gave all the free stuff to the Muslims,
Right.
and not to,
But whatever the reasoning, that's the idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Islamic law.
I mean, it's in addition to just being wrong.
Presumably, though, if they got to go fight in a war, they would be killing, let's say, pretty good chance they'd be killing Muslim people.
Yeah.
And that would
wouldn't that
animate
be-
them
yeah.
if they hated Muslim people so much?
Yeah, I didn't even think about it like that. You're
Like
right.
they'd be defending Britain from the encroaching hordes
I
from
would have.
elsewhere?
I would love to see this guy respond to that logic.
Yeah, I should
We
have.
should
I
get
should have
these
brought
guys
that
on-
up. Damn, that's a
the
good
show.
take.
People on the right
Yeah.
are very blind to this issue that we already raised, which is wealth inequality and opportunity. Right?
I'm sure there are some people who feel that way, of course, but
Well, think about this, Hasan.
But
Right?
even
Hold on,
with
let me
the-
just finish
okay,
the point.
go ahead.
Like, stereotypically speaking, is it left of center people or right of center people that are going to go and fight for their country? Typically, it's going to be right of center people because of the mindset that they have, right?
I think when push comes to
All
shove,
right, I'm gonna
everybody
be
fights for
honest.
their country.
When most people go to fight for their country, because it's the experience of how most people are pushed to fight for their country, they're not volunteering. Like, that's also like to me. There's like a degree, like I guess that I.
Well, I guess if they want to say modern America or whatever.
I mean,
like,
but even still, like if it's like you're putting to people the question of like, would you go fight for your country? Like in the hypothetical Hasan presented, like I didn't take it to be like, would you go sign up tomorrow and do it? Like,
there's a lot of ideology there, but I'm curious what he wants to say about.
He's saying that right wingers are the most
Yeah,
willing to fight for their country.
Yeah, of course.
And
Because that's why you have to have a draft.
in a war. But what we're talking about in this situation is, will you go and serve in armed forces? That is going to be a more right-leaning perspective. And those people we probably fair to
not
say
fight
know
for
the
your
UK pretty
country.
well. Those
Just
people are
be
concerned
in the
about
military.
the national
Which people
identity
in
of their
America
country.
will
It's like,
volunteer
why
to
would I
do
fight
it
for a
for
country
money?
that doesn't feel like my country?
They do it
Is the
for money.
accusation
Yeah,
for
and a
them.
couple
This is where the
psychos
big
and
point of division
freaks.
comes for someone like myself. You're Venezuelan originally, like your family came from Venezuela. Your family came from the USSR. You guys are the most British people I've ever encountered.
I have a very British face.
Yes.
You are correct.
Yeah, exactly. You're British to the bone,
Argument.
Yeah.
and yet
That's a point. Yeah, that's a point for me. They backed away from that. They were like, "Yes, you're right. I am very." He said, "I have a very British face."
That was the Jubilee prompt that we were hoping came together.
Yeah, I don't know why there's no Triggernometry
families
fact
also
check
came.
there. Most British people. Yeah, Hasan Piker is correct. We are very British looking.
from countries that were somewhat far away from England, right?
Yeah.
And I'm Turkish. I grew up in Turkey. My whole family lives in Turkey still, with some exceptions. And I would say I'm pretty assimilated to American culture. I grew up being fascinated by American culture. I grew up consuming American pop culture, as do many people all around the world. And what I always find interesting is when people focus on the newcomers, to say that this is actually destroying the social fabric or social cohesion, not realizing that there are a ton of polls conducted on this stuff. I can just speak for America, especially.
Yeah, what the? What the? Bro, what is happening, dude? They're about to do gay stuff in the bathroom, chat. They're about to literally kiss one another. They're kissing one another off camera right now.
Oh, like blowback.
Yeah, blowback comes from blowing each other's backs out. They just got up at the same time. That's sus, dude.
Well, your house is so large that I just show them where the
Freaking
bathroom
sus,
is.
dude. That's sus, brother.
Where by the second generation, assimilation is almost complete, and by the third one, it's like virtually impossible to distinguish in terms of performance, educational output, and job performance in general. It's just like everyone becomes American.
That's not true in the UK, though, unfortunately. So if you look at, for example, Islamist radicalization, second and third generation Muslims are much more radical than first generation.
Yeah,
so we're not. that's the issue that a lot of people in Britain are concerned about.
Islamist
Not everyone's
like, how do
assimilated.
you?
Islamist radicalization.
Like, there's no way to respond to this on like a factual. Like, how do you?
No, I can't. And then they were like, he was just saying like a bunch of shit I had no idea about, because he was like, here's information that suggested every Muslim man in the UK wants to do Sharia law to every white woman. And I was like, I don't think that's the case, but I admitted, I was like, I don't know if that's the case or not, but that sounds a little crazy to me. It sounds a bit far-fetched.
In the way that the three of us have done.
So here's the interesting point about that. Well, two things I want to address. First, like I said, people assimilate. And they become a part of the
Some people.
normal forces of society. They become a part of the culture, or they bring some aspect of their culture into British culture. You know, they change the cuisine, and people seemingly enjoy it, even if they also simultaneously go attend an EDL rally and then, you know, get a little quick curry afterwards, or a little kebab on the side. But beyond that, the reason why people are angry is always going to be because the trains are not running on time, because the NHS is improperly managed due to underfunding. That's what I believe. I think it's always an issue of underfunding, where they're not getting the same services that they once used to, and also things are becoming more and more costly.
Yeah, they brought up Islamic Sharia.
Yeah, heard of it.
To which my retort was, it's not Islamic Sharia or the Muslims that are coming in. It's usually used as like a red herring against diminishing social safety nets.
Well, they're really insistent on the idea that no. Well, actually, they're like, actually, the interesting thing is that Islamic radicalization in Britain, they're more radical in the third generation than the first generation.
That's what he said, and I was like, I don't know if that's the case. Like,
it's just like,
but I have no answer to it, because he's a. And there's no fact check. There's no fact check underneath, so it must be true.
I thought there was going to be fact checks.
Well, you know, the interesting thing about global warming is that chemtrails are actually a major part of it. Like, how do you argue with that shit?
Thank you.
There's no arguing with it.
I think we're set. I'm set.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I got owned right there. He's no fact check means he's right.
So in that anger, it's much easier for them to be guided by a right wing, guided by the right wing forces, to turn around and say, you're angry and you're right to be angry. And the reason why you're angry, the reason why all of these things are happening,
not eat on
is
stream,
because,
please and thanks. Oh, all right, chatter. Bye-bye, I guess. Idiot. Dumbass. Shut the up, idiot. Stupid ass. What are we supposed to do? We're hungry.
We are importing all of these random strangers into the country who don't speak your language, who you are scared by. And that, I think, causes division, and it causes friction that makes it harder for people to integrate. And that is part of the reason why I think, especially in a place like the UK, you see a little bit more of this resilience towards full-blown integration into society.
I also think as well, Hasan, if we're being honest, it's also because we have had such huge amounts of immigration come into the country that people understandably go, this pace of change is too much. And you have to think, let's go back to 2016, which was the Brexit referendum. Now, Brexit was about many things, but really it was about people wanting immigration to be lowered. And that was 9 or 10 years ago. Immigration hasn't been lowered. In fact, it's been ratcheted up. So people are, people voted to lower immigration. And
these motherfuckers are like, we don't want the Polish in the country. Yeah. And then instead they got, I guess, more immigration from non-Polish parts and non-European immigration. Much to consider.
For instance, I voted Remain. People voted Brexit. I'm like, well, that's democracy. We get on. We're going to make the best of it. I do believe that when you ignore people's wishes at the ballot box and people explicitly vote for something and you ignore them for the best part of a decade, that does generate a lot of anger, and understandably so.
Yeah, I think in that same time frame, if there was enough appetite by the government to address the financial harm that people were experiencing, the economic struggles that people were experiencing, there would still be a lot of people who say, I don't want a brown person, I don't want a black person around in my neighborhood, but ultimately those numbers would be far smaller. And that's what I always go back to. I'm a leftist. I believe in economic improvements, and I believe that a lot of the reactionary forces actually take advantage of that instability, the economic volatility that exists, in an effort to shift the attention away to people who have the same exact interests as you and I do. Because ultimately, I don't believe that anyone is coming into the United States of America or the UK, as a matter of fact, because they want to bring about a Salafist-style Islamic caliphate in London. I know you won't agree with me on this.
It's not about whether I agree; it's about whether the facts agree with you.
I don't think that's the case.
Hold on.
I think
let me just give you some facts then. If we have a terrorist attack on a monthly basis by an Islamist, effectively, we just had 2 in the space of the last month as we're recording this. 33%, I think, of British Muslims want Sharia law in Britain, like according to polls. More than half want to ban.
I want to see the data. I need to see the data. Source and description. All right, what's the source?
Ending Christianity's traditional role by removing the church. Do you feel that the implementation of the following in the UK in the next 20 years will be desirable? I have no idea where this is coming from, but where is it? It's not in the description.
I was told it was.
They won't say where it's from? Well, regardless, they could have made it up entirely. No. I mean, it's just like all this stuff is Sharia law, general public minus 51%. British Muslims. Wait, what kind of poll segments general public and British Muslims like this? And also, even then,
also it's just not
amongst
true.
British Muslims, it's like, yeah, somewhat desirable or very desirable is at like 70% and 15%. Look up the stat; it's probably some crazy thing.
Well, no, there's neither desirable nor undesirable.
Yeah, these are some bad Muslims, bro. They don't even want to do fifth column style integration well enough.
I just want to say that even if the Muslims in America want Sharia law, I support them.
Well, it's because, yeah, I want it because I'm a Muslim American in America who wants Sharia law. It's true. I'm doing Islamic style taqiyya.
Like, according to polls, more than half want to ban.
I haven't seen these polls.
Well, we can put them in for people to see.
Henry
More than half want to ban
Jackson
homosexuality, right?
So yes, baby.
Right wing, ignore.
Yeah, half of all British Muslims think homosexuality should be illegal. Poll finds. It's always funny that like these guys will be like, "This is incompatible." Okay, well, a ton of white people in England also want to ban homosexuality.
Also,
but
I'm
that's
like
compatible because it's white people.
I'm dismissive and skeptical of these findings to begin with because it's a poll number that I don't like, and therefore I always reserve the right to dislike polling numbers that I dislike.
Thank you.
But
Exactly.
also,
It's the old Gore Vidal line.
this article is more than 9 years old. It does feel like a not insignificant thing. Just a thought. If they're going to use it to debunk you or whatever.
So when you say people aren't coming in to introduce an Islamist stuff, well, some of them want to if they're in a position to do so. We have 5 MPs who are effectively elected on a sectarian ticket, like as in we are Muslims, vote for us because you're a Muslim.
Who would you say those MPs are?
The 5 independent MPs, they're called the Gaza MPs or whatever way you want to call them. Right?
Are you talking about like Zara Sultana?
I don't know if she's one of them. I think one of them is called Adnan Hussein. There's 5 of them. We can look them up. We can put them in for people to see. Right. So
the Islamist MP Jeremy Corbyn. Why didn't they mention that to me when I was talking to them?
You're being corrected. You're being debunked.
I would have had a very good laugh about the Islamist Jeremy Corbyn. We're Muslim. Vote for us.
It's like 4 lions. The white Islamist is always the most. He's the head of it all.
Yeah, Johnny Jihad.
Yeah.
Jeremy Corbyn, or as I like to call him, Johnny Jihad.
Yeah. Islam.
I think it should be said that the overwhelming majority of British Muslims.
Yeah, jizya, more like jizya, which is the tax that we will implement on the non-believer kuffars.
Let's go.
Don't want Sharia law. But if 33% of them do, you can see why a lot of people who don't want Sharia law might be concerned about that, right?
Sure. I don't know what I haven't seen these polls, and I also don't know what British Muslims or the 33% that are saying they want Sharia law, like what they're talking about.
If you want smart, fearless commentary on the craziest things happening in media, politics, and online culture, you'll love the Brad versus Everyone podcast.
What's this portrait
hosted by Brad Palumbo, an independent journalist who calls it like it is. The podcast covers viral.
That is an on-cinema character if I've ever seen
Brad
one.
Palumbo.
Spotify or wherever you listen.
Kind of World War I.
The counterexample always is, there's plenty of right-wing forces in the country that also want to ban homosexuality. Or trans people in general, right?
No,
like
no one wants to ban trans people in Britain. No.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's not what I have seen so far, but maybe I'm wrong on this.
What do you mean?
But I feel like there's a lot of this is a point of contention for you guys as well. But it's like when you want to ban trans people altogether, when you want to remove access to medication for trans people to transition and conform their own gender identity, you don't start off by saying we want to altogether ban trans people. You start off by trying to find the most successful approach that the broadest majority of the masses would be in tune with, would be in agreement with, and then you slowly but surely expand on it.
Wouldn't that be like me saying? Wouldn't that be like me saying, well, you say you want socialism, but actually you're a communist because you just want to edge your way towards communism step by step?
I mean,
that seems like an unfair way of looking at it.
No, my retort to that would be that while I don't call myself a communist, I don't have an issue with an end goal of communism. I don't think it's like I just think that it's probably not likely to happen, a stateless, moneyless, borderless society. But moving towards that end goal, I don't have any real...
You'd like communism in America?
I think that communism would be most likely an international thing. It'd be like the Star Trek universe. And it feels, especially at this point, it feels far too utopian to achieve. So while I think that the concept in and of itself is not one that I disagree with, and I don't think you would either. Don't you think it would be nicer?
I grew up in a communist country. I very strongly disagree with the concept of communism.
The USSR was, as you know as well, trying to implement communism. They never actually were able to successfully implement communism.
How do you mean?
Well, it wasn't a borderless, moneyless, classless society, right?
That was never the goal of communism. It was never to be a borderless, moneyless society.
No, that is what communism is.
Well, that's not how the communists in Russia defined it.
Well,
there was a big debate within communism quite early on.
Am I wrong on this?
Lecture coming in.
It's a transitional socialist state. Like, that's the whole point. Just like with China, right?
There were whole Soviet policies that were describing what stage and in what, parts of society had begun to get closer to communism. But then you get the whole thing of capital C communism versus, the idea that, as you're describing, a classless, borderless society. It gets a little muddled. I don't necessarily blame someone who, not this guy, but I don't necessarily blame someone who was living in like Brezhnev era Soviet Union to think like communism did mean what the socioeconomic system they lived in, that was the definition. But if you're supposed to be a debate guy and you want to dance and do semantic arguments like this, then you kind of do have to acknowledge the difference between the utopian or Marxist idea of what a future communist society is and what the Soviet Union actually called themselves and how they thought of communism as an aspirational, the road to communism rather than just what existed.
Here's my counter. Communism is when I want to describe a foreign adversary's failures.
Yeah.
And capitalism is when I want to describe a foreign adversary's successes. How about that?
That works pretty well.
It's called the China dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. China, Genghis the Great, Deng the Great Reformer, the Omega capitalist created created capitalism in China, and that's why it's good. But it's also a scary country in the periphery that we must destroy because it's communist.
Their parades are scary and better.
Genghis Khan. Yeah.
Global
Yes.
state of communism.
Frost versus Stalin.
Oh,
I'm
right.
very familiar.
Right, but for our audience, this might be worth explaining.
Yeah.
Some of them wanted to, they basically recognized the only way you might ever get to a communist society is if everyone in the world gets it. Otherwise, there will always be a capitalist system to which people would be keen to defect. Or, this is the Stalin option that they ended up going for, is you pursue communism within the realm of one country. And in order to do that, they took the wealth away from people who had it. They tried to distribute it to everybody else. They tried to create a state of equality,
And also,
uplift the
like,
poor,
what
as
he's
you were talking about. And
describing
actually,
is, like, what
if you take
happened
those
in either
measures alone, they were very
situation. Like, it's
successful
not
at it.
like,
The only problem
oh, well,
is they ended up
expropriation
putting
was how they got to
millions of people in
socialism one
camps.
country.
Yeah.
Well, he's no Stephen Kotkin, folks.
In order to do that, creating a tyrannical regime with a secret police that murdered people. And that is the reason communism, in my opinion, doesn't
You
work.
know where
is
there's no
because
tyrannical regime with
communism-
secret police is good old Chile, where they made their own constitution,
Yeah.
by the way,
Yeah, yeah.
with no fuss, no muss.
Yeah.
I mean,
and also, yes, communism is when the government has secret police. And the more secret police you have, the more communist the government becomes.
Yep.
Which is why America's a communist dictatorship as well.
Well, that's, I mean, the thing I'm really thinking about is how, well, for most of the lifetime of the Soviet Union, the guy who is, there was a secret police in the United States. It was called the FBI, and the guy who ran it was called J. Edgar Hoover. And even like all the liberals who, buried that guy would have said pretty much the same thing. Like that one isn't a particularly persuasive bit of evidence.
Yeah. COINTELPRO, which is how America implemented state communism through our secret police and the assassination of dissidents.
to achieve that goal of equality, and basically you're making everybody equally poor as the end result, you actually have to use a lot of force, right? So that was communism, what we had in the USSR.
Well, that the end goal was never successfully achieved in the USSR in terms of establishing what I'm talking about, though. And that's why I'm saying it's important to understand and recognize the failures of this implementation in the aftermath of a socialist revolution and choose not to repeat those mistakes.
So how would you do it differently?
Well, that's the reason why I'm pointed to China. China is run by the Communist Party of China. It bills itself as communist. China is not a communist country. Would you say China is a communist country?
It's a mixed country. It has some elements of communism, but it's also got a lot of capitalism going on,
Yeah,
right?
so it's a mixed market economy,
Big
is what you're
brain.
saying,
Look
right?
at the big brain on
but so is the United
Brad.
States of America, if you look at it from that perspective. Because America also has some...
So is a mixed market economy. So is America.
I mean, it is like I mean, there is like a good lesson in that, like, like looking at where it is that our systems like do resemble each other. But I'm like, I got to admit, I am like pretty fascinated by it.
The way his brain works.
Well, I mean, it's like, why have two thoughts when you could only have one?
So what? I'm curious what they said about you after you left. Do you know what
Apparently,
they
there's a
said?
video. Yeah, we'll look at it.
Oh yeah, I do want to see their show. He's like, well,
They said they were too cordial to me.
Yeah.
yes, you see, we were blind.
agree.
We were blinded by his handsomeness and the fact that we chose the Chronicles of Riddick as the inspiration for our set.
That's such a great reference.
It has to be blinding.
Yeah, they got the British buff, or not the British buff. They got nerfed as Brits in the sunlight.
with some social safety nets. The UK also has some social safety nets, some state-run enterprises, especially pre-Margaret Thatcher, I would say, versus private enterprises as well. Venezuela at its peak, I think, had more privatization and more private enterprise in its economy than France did, as a matter of fact. I believe there was like a report at around 2012, maybe, where they were talking about how like Venezuela is not socialist. It's when these sorts of countries, and you're not wrong, it's a mixture of both, right? It exists. Social safety nets exist. Some extrapolation initiatives exist. Like when you think about Norway, for example, the entirety of the extraction industry in Norway is actually nationalized from the forestry all the way down to the oil and gas industry. But then there's also the private market as well.
This is just embarrassing.
Private enterprise as
Luckily,
well.
they don't know anything that I'm talking about.
that is a nice perk.
Hey, that actually is. I forget. Maybe that's part of why like people are incentivized to like do podcasts with like people who like get scared at like reading or whatever, because it is like when you f up or whatever, like no one catches it. I mean, we caught that they were like, see source or whatever, and they just like didn't put it in.
A 10-year-old poll from a dubious.
No. Well, I think the Henry Jackson's, but they made sure that the Guardian 9-year-old article was there too.
Right.
No, they have
multiple sources. They own me on that postmortem ownage.
Yeah, well, it's because I think the only way they can get one over on anybody is if the other person died.
That's Triggernometry.
Triggernometry. I would love for them to explain, like ask them like really earnestly. So, how did you come up with the name?
It's brilliant.
It's a fight against woke.
Well, yeah, I suppose.
As far as that goes, I wouldn't say that China is a communist, and neither would you. But it's run by a communist party, and so far they have seen a pretty successful, pretty robust level of growth and development overall. So they have analyzed the failures of previous communist and socialist formations, and they have responded to it in their own way.
Look at me promoting Xi Jinping thought. Yeah. I just Xi Jinping on governance, copy in hand. You know.
The challenge is, Hasan, when you centralize power and you give practically all the power to the government, what happens with that is you're far more likely to have corruption, you're far more likely to have abuse of power, and inevitably what happens is that the government can't do everything. There are things that are far better.
Yeah, there's no centralization.
That's not happening right now. We don't have centralization in America.
There's no centralization of power or corruption in the United States of America. I'd never really thought about it like that.
I would say this is probably... There's some corruption, but I would say this is probably our least corrupt time right now.
Yeah, there's like actually...
The more we've dismantled the government, I think this is probably our least corrupt moment as a government.
Well,
as a republic.
And we should take it a step further. This is also the least sclerotic power has ever been in America.
Yeah. There's probably less abuse going on and less corruption going on.
Because really what it's about, Brennan?
It's about family.
It's about family. No, it's about efficiency. It's about efficiency. It's about getting things done.
And America is the most efficient country. For sure. Not like the pesky Communist Party of China. It's
done by private practice than done by state control. So if you
I agree with that. Would you also agree that there are things that are far better done in the hands of the government, or at least with like heavy market regulation and intervention?
I completely agree.
Because like healthcare, I think is a great example of this, where like it's an inelastic demand, good and service, right? If you don't have healthcare, you die. So you will pay whatever price you have to pay for healthcare. And therefore, I think the American system that is the most maximalist, most capitalist, most like free enterprise system has been an abject failure in terms of delivering good results. And what I mean by that is healthcare as a whole is supposed to improve people's living standards and also make sure that everyone is getting the best quality care possible, right? And in the United States of America, we don't have that. We do have nicer hospitals that resemble hotels as
I'll be
opposed to
honest
like.
with you, it'd be difficult not to have a nicer hospital than the UK, mate.
Yeah, no, but I understand that. I'm from Turkey. I've seen the Turkish public hospitals, but I would rather try to focus on the diminished quality of service and try to improve that in a socialized system than to altogether limit healthcare at the point of being able to pay for it in the way that we have in the United States of America. And I think this is a major issue with America in general, is that we are so invested in improving our GDP. We're so invested in leaning into the forces of capital that in this sector and in many others, corruption still
I didn't get that far, but
we have it in the form of corporate consolidation here in the United States of America. Because in the absence of any sort of government intervention, trust busting, and heavy regulatory intervention, all corporations end up trying to seize one another and become a force, a monopolistic force, and if not, an oligopoly. Right, and many sectors have seen this. And when you become an oligopoly, you can diminish the quality of service that you're offering slowly but surely because there's no market competition that exists any longer.
I noticed that there's a pattern here where I like end up describing stuff.
You're just explaining how stuff works to them.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And they just like kind of keep quiet throughout the process, waiting for their, waiting for an opportune moment to come in and just be like, well, Venezuela.
Well,
or the USSR was communism.
You centralize power. Then what you do with the power is you put it all in one place. And if you put everything in one place, right, it's easy to steal. You can steal that power.
Well, that was certainly true in Russia.
Yeah.
I was about to say, like, I'm glad this guy who, let's be generous, the guy from the USSR, like, I'm glad he did leave right before the Soviet Union probably fell, and then didn't have to withstand the decade plus of malnourishment and alcoholism and preventable death that whacked the country.
Also in the hands of many.
Yes.
One could say that was a successful decentralization of power.
Yes.
One government, many oligarchs.
And people were rid of the horrible burden of a publicly run set of safety nets and guarantees, and it was given to the incredibly efficient Russian oligarchs and their American friends. So I am glad he got out of there before that happened, and like maybe 1 year of Gorbachev socialism.
Tremendous period of liberalization.
I don't know. Maybe that's unfair.
Liberalization.
Maybe that's unfair. Maybe he was there longer.
I'm going to be honest, man. I don't, based on how this guy's talking and his really like.
Maybe he's 50 years old and he's looking really good. I don't know.
And he has. Well, I was just going to say I think that his very evidently advanced understanding of Soviet communism.
No, this guy definitely did not get educated in the USSR because he would be a lot more competent.
Yeah, he would know stuff. I mean, that's the other. I mean, he wouldn't say that like socialism in one country was expropriation or whatever he like described it as.
And the KGB.
All right, and then the other stuff wasn't that.
Two things.
Because there was a debate. They had a debate. There was a big debate.
Yeah, when you do expropriation and secret police, that's socialism.
Well, no, that's
Which
socialism in one country.
America is a socialism in one country.
That was socialism in one country, but there was yes, correct. But there was this other path that was not taken that he didn't describe or really illuminate at all.
I think there's 0 countries that don't have at least some kind of like land ownership structure at the end of the day that they can implement if need be. Whether it be in America, eminent domain, or even property taxes, like there is
we have powers that we use. I mean, the most obvious. I mean, it almost feels trite to point out, but it is worth identifying. Like the pretext in which if something quote unquote has to happen, and like politics have to be damned, right? Like you have to move without consulting conventional democratic constituencies. We do it in America under national security premises. Like we have a huge public health crisis, for example. We study pandemic prevention. All of that stuff is routed through the Pentagon. Don Rumsfeld was a major part of how that was formulated in this country. It's not like we do this all the time. It's just we fold it under a different rubric that is, I guess, just outside of ideology or whatever.
DPA, like. There's another aspect of like using the productive forces under the guidance of like a singular like executive leadership. That's what the DPA looked like, the Defense Production Act. That's what it is. That's what we did during COVID.
It's what we used in the Korean War. I mean, that's it's there's also something to be said for how a lot of the like structures that we would need to or that people would want to resurrect in American life or things like it, like to control inflation, for example. We did have those in America, like the Price Stabilization Bureau, the Wage Stabilization Bureau, which were how we dealt with inflation without just cutting interest rates to the bone, or rate hiking interest rates to the bone. We had that. It's just that it had to go away. Like obviously, the large the manufacturers and big capital like did not want these things around, and they didn't want these bureaucracies managing this stuff.
But that's much better because centralization was eradicated.
The Dr. Pepper Zero is better than the diet, in my opinion. Yeah, I was expecting sorry, I'm not trying to throw us off. I'm surprised how much the Zero is kind of tastier.
I'll have to reconsider.
I guess the way I look at it is in terms of corruption, you're right. There is a tendency, if the government is all powerful, even though the governments are always all powerful, there is a tendency in more centralized governance that if someone wants to be a ruthless autocrat, they can do so. And the people don't always have the capacity to rise up against that. But I would say that in the United States of America, for example, we also experience a similar dynamic. We just don't see it in the same way because it's not the most direct form of authoritarianism, where a lot of people think, well, as long as I can eat a Big Mac, as long as I can watch TV, as long as I can consume porn and gamble on the unregulated crypto currency market or gamble my modest income away, what remains after I give the rest to my landlord, then things are probably fine. And I think we dull our sensibilities in that regard. And I think it's a different form, it's a different mechanism of control that makes you think that you are actually an active participant in this.
I mean, I think that's quite a stretch, Hasan, with all respect, because the difference between, we talked about some societies that have attempted to pursue communism, China, the Soviet Union, Venezuela, etc. Right? The difference between those countries is not that they can't eat a Big Mac. The difference is that if they criticize the government, in Russia today even, but of course in the Soviet Union previously, you're going to get killed. right?
He
In
just
America,
said
that's not
in
what
Russia
happens.
today, which
Right?
is not
In
a
America,
communist
you
government.
don't get.
We don't know yet. We don't know where we're going to go yet.
I mean, Hasan,
You
to be
wanna
fair,
unspool that a little
you're
bit
very
more?
successful.
It's not about,
You in
not
China
about the
are-
one.
They're
I like
getting
how
rowdy.
at
They're
this-
getting rowdy.
They're also like now at the part of the interview where it looks like you're on a flight deck. I'm sorry, I'm fascinated by this staging.
So where was this that you were
In
being
the
interviewed?
hills somewhere.
Oh, okay.
Cielo Drive.
They rented out like a
So were
nice.
these, I thought they lived together here at this place and just kind of
No,
hung
no,
out.
this
and-
is. They live in the UK, I think.
oh, okay.
I mean, that's clearly why they will end their day walkers.
Yeah, well,
Barely.
I like them.
get killed, right? In America, that's not what happens, right? In America,
Until-
you don't get.
We don't know yet. We don't know where we're going to go yet.
I mean, Hasan, to be fair, you're a very successful.
with you.
You in China
I
in the Soviet
know-
Union
I
would
know
be killed
everything
if
they're
you were
gonna say,
critical
like
of that
about-
regime.
about
I would
10 seconds
definitely
before-
eject.
about 10
You'd
seconds
definitely
before it
eject.
hits.
Yeah, no, and my point is like my overarching broader point about like free speech in America is that it's like it's only afforded to the domineering hegemonic superpower. And at times, as I described previously, in times of war, for example, there is no free speech. But these guys like refuse to recognize that. I'm like, that's why I say we'll see, because that's being threatened already as America is losing its influence around the globe. You're seeing how it reacts. Like, yeah, say something about Israel. See how much they like it. See how well you do. Except
is
these
kind-
guys apparently had a favorable interview with Benjamin Netanyahu. I did not know that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're like super. They're apparently super pro-Israel.
Is that true? These two?
Yeah.
These
Really?
guys? No.
No, I'm actually not being sarcastic.
I'm not.
because
I
saw-
after
There's one that
that,
you
this
took-
far into it, I think I've pegged that they
because
probably.
I saw Finkelstein on their show, which, made me think, oh, they're kind of like a right skeptic, type of vibe.
Yeah, like they're giving him space.
Yeah. Holding space.
Yeah.
So that's the difference between these countries and America. It's not a Big Mac, it's freedom.
No, so
That's
I
what
love that you brought
Finkelstein
that
said
up
to them.
because I agree with that. I'm from Turkey, a country that has never had the First Amendment or freedom of speech. And ironically enough, the current regime, the person in charge of the current regime, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, was jailed in the past for a poem that he wrote for incitement, right? He read a poem about Atatürk, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Right now.
And he was jailed, and now he's one of the most ruthless.
By the way, that's the worst Erdogan photo I've ever seen in my entire life.
He looks like the pillow guy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they why do they also it's not recent. Like he's like I understand.
No. I'm because I brought up the poem that he read.
Oh,
in the
at that
past
situation.
when
Okay,
he got
okay.
arrested, and that's from that. So this is actually a timely.
So then good for them.
Yeah. This is complimentary information. They're right.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
They're right
And he
in
was
that they
jailed,
looked
and-
at the
and
thing
now-
you said correctly.
Yes.
That was a big win.
Yeah.
That's kind
Respect
of
to
funny.
them.
Yeah.
He's one of the most ruthless jailers of the press in the country.
Right.
Now, so I come from that background. I can't go back to Turkey, for example,
Right.
for these reasons. I've written about Turkey extensively, and let's just say the administration is not super fond of me and my perspective. Having said that, that is the reason why I want the First Amendment to remain in the United States of America, even though, as I brought up earlier, there have been instances throughout American history where the First Amendment has been actively violated or threatened. There are still contemporary examples of violations of the First Amendment. One example I will use is the anti-boycott, divestment, and sanctions laws that exist in the United States of America. Famously was Bernie Sanders and Dianne Feinstein, rest in peace, who actively called it out. Two prominent Jewish politicians.
I'm trying to centrist myself.
No, you're building bridges. I get it.
I'm centrist masking. I said rest in peace, Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah.
in the country. These are laws directly written by AIPAC that dictate that if you want to become a school teacher in the state of Texas, for example, you have to sign a loyalty pledge to ensure that you never protest against the state of Israel. It's ridiculous, right? And it's a direct violation of the First Amendment. So there are there is encroachment towards the First
Well, that
Amendment.
will always happen because people will always contest it. But
Oh,
Keep talking, Mr.
but it'll always happen.
Yeah.
You don't understand. Let's just get, but America is still free speech. America, free speech.
the point I'm making to you is when you compare China and the Soviet Union and Venezuela to America, that is not an accurate comparison.
It's not an accurate comparison, but if you recall earlier, I just said,
Yes.
I'm worried that we here in the United States of America
You said
are
it's a
now
continuum,
moving in that
basically, of
direction in
authoritative.
terms of social
It's the
repression,
first thing you said.
in terms of political repression. And this is something that I very much fear. I think the entry point to this is usually around Israel and what people decry as anti-Semitism, but that's not where it's going to end. If you look at the Trump administration's active the active initiatives of the administration
I'm
is
also
taking.
always curious if these guys feel like, well, China's of course a mixed economy, is many capitalist mechanisms. Okay, so if that's the case, and China's developing more, and it is producing wealth at the scale that it is,
why can't we do more China?
Well, not only why can't we do more China, but a question that mirrors that is, don't then they believe that China won't actually be a one-party state forever and will relax its political structures as it's relaxing its economic structures as well? If these two things, as they tell us, are to be intertwined, hopelessly intertwined, then you would expect there to be a reason to have faith that there is some kind of socialistic version of China where they relax the more strict and authoritarian controls over certain things because of the development that's happening and some of the market mechanisms that are existing, even if it's under a socialist mixed economy. But they never say that.
Yeah, well, that's because, remember, if China is doing something good, that's capitalism. If China is doing something bad, that's communism.
Yeah.
And therefore, China is both in a state of capitalism and communism at the same time.
It's Schrodinger's economy.
Yeah.
State, whatever.
That's just how it works. And America is also a mixed market economy with some socialization, with a much lower degree of socialization. But America is good because it's capitalism.
Because honestly, I don't know if I would argue this necessarily personally, but I would argue that as China becomes, as the United States wanes and China is a more secure global leader, it is arguable, maybe you could go the other way, but it is arguable that
liberalization
that it will let go of
Yeah.
some of the more extreme versions of control over the
I think so, too.
freedom
I
of
mean,
speech over the internet.
it also already has,
just
and,
as
like,
we did.
I was going to say, like, it's also like while there are certain restrictions that have intensified in the last number of years, there are also like others that have loosened. And I think like it seems extremely clear. I mean, Hasan and I have talked about this a lot, that like the degree to which Chinese culture is now coming outward and leaving China and coming into the, I mean, like Labubu is sort of the obvious, most recent, like, you know, sort of commercialized version of it. But I mean, the kind of cultural exchange that is conducive to that openness is taking place more and more.
Yeah. Other than
Yesterday, my
participating
friend
in
Kat
it.
Abugzaleh, who used to be a reporter who's now running in Illinois for Congress, was indicted. She was indicted because she participated in the protest against ICE outside of an ICE facility. And there are videos of her getting slammed to the ground in the concrete with this militarized, masked federal police force, right? Not only did they beat her up, which was already ridiculous to begin with, but then they also chose to indict her. There are examples of students writing for their student newspaper. And
The CPC endorsed someone else today? What do you mean? Are you talking about how they endorsed me? Did you see that?
No.
Yeah, they retweet the Chinese embassy Twitter account retweeted Hasan's interview.
Yeah, with the eyes.
I didn't know that. I didn't know.
Yeah,
that
and then it's Liu Pengyu, the spokesperson of Chinese embassy in the U.S., tweeted out my interview with CGTN, and then the Chinese embassy hit that. I'm trying to get a 10-year visa, man. Give me a 10-year visa.
We got to get in on this kind of thing.
I know.
Sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and then Laura Loomer came out and was like, the Chinese embassy in the U.S., which openly supports CCP, is promoting Hasan Piker. By the way,
Wait, the embassy supports the Chinese Communist Party?
yeah, dude, that was the
That's
best
fucked
part.
up.
That's the best part. The Chinese embassy in the U.S., which openly supports CCP.
I've been following the embassy for a long time. I consider myself a fan. I had no idea that they
Yeah, I will be
actually-
withdrawing my endorsement of the Chinese embassy in the U.S. now that I know.
Oh wait, this is what I wondered about. What is the red-green access?
Dude, I think
What
it's
is green?
Islamic
Islamic
communism. Islamo-Gauchism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when we started Blowback, there were people who, Chapo, didn't like us or me. And they said, there was one guy who was particularly angry and he called it a red brown fast cast.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no,
I know exactly. It wasn't a guy. It was a lady.
Oh, well, I mean, there might have been multiple
I think
people.
it was the anarchists that were mad.
Oh,
was
I'm
that
sure
Gwen?
that was.
Oh, that was Gwen. What's her? We don't have to say her full name, but no, I remember that one.
I think that
it was a guy that was talking to me. I went back and forth,
Oh.
but maybe there was marching orders. In
it's
the
cool. It's cool that
Anarchist
like
International.
that throughout my career, I've had so many people be like, Hasan is betraying the MLs. Like, he's not real. He's not a real Marxist. He's a liberal, whatever. And then all of those people slowly but surely have become like MAGA communists.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or just become like MAGA because
Yep.
that's like the
Well, it's
the
boring
higher-
to have the same opinion for like more than 6 months. You got to
Yeah.
shake it up.
Yeah, but they all were like, "Oh, Hasan is actually like fake. He's phony." My position's never changed, but those people's positions changed. So what does that say about them?
Yeah. It's like the religious, the people who are like hopelessly, zealot, who are hopeless zealots for religion. That, you're Ross Douthat. Well, Ross Douthat interviewed you, so I'll be nice to him. But like you're,
no, you don't have to be.
What's the guy? Rod.
Oh, Rod Dreher.
Dreher.
He's been like he may be Baha'i right now. I don't know.
Yeah,
but
I love
he's
guys like that. Though.
Orthodox,
the people who are like, I was a
Catholic.
Maoist when I was 13.
Yeah.
You see the photo of him going around today?
I don't know if I want to.
No, he took he's like, I just had the most
oysters
amazing
again?
conversation with Nick Cave. And so they posed
Cave?
Yeah, they posed for a photo together.
I like Nick Cave, but he's a little goofy when it comes to maybe exactly this kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, sorry.
Getting kidnapped and thrown into a immigrant detention facility, whether it be Mahmoud Khalil, who still has an ongoing legal case for being a student activist, a student protester, and having a green card while doing it.
We have the same thing in our country in different ways. I hear you. Sorry, the reason I'm interrupting you is we've moved sideways from the topic. So remember where we started this conversation, right? So just to address your point.
The repression didn't start in China by everybody being like, all right, it's over, we're throwing you in jail. It builds up to it is what I mean. And it's entirely dependent on the starting point. Because if you were looking at China, if you're looking at the Chinese Civil War, post-World War II, 30 million Chinese people have been slaughtered ruthlessly by the Japanese imperialists. Like, that's a very different material.
They got you.
That's a very different set of
30,
material
20
circumstance.
to 20 million.
Most historical estimates place Chinese deaths in World War II at 10 to 20 million. These figures are used by the U.S. National World War II Museum and the Cambridge History of China, amongst other credible sources. Yeah, I got it wrong. I said 30 million. It was
China
actually
is a
10
land
to
of
20.
contrasts, Hasan.
Yeah, it was at 10 to 20 million. My bad. My mistake.
For the end of that civil war and to develop governance.
Fine.
Similar to the
I'm just trying to bring you back to the central argument, with central discussion we're having. Francis made the point that when the government is in a position to be authoritarian, where it seems to inevitably end up in every communist country in the history of the world, right? That is a situation which inevitably then leads to levels of repression of the kind that you will not see in America for 100 years. I take your point about individual protesters or individual people who've made statements.
What about the point about Turkey or
Russia
or
Russia now?
All the other examples that whatever.
Or the fact that, like, the point I'm trying to make is that you get to have some semblance of like social libertarianism when you're the domineering force around the planet. That's the argument that I'm making. And as America's like power is waning at the global stage, then yeah, it's slowly but surely turning into a more repressive force in that regard. And it has throughout history as well. When its power was contested, they refused to reckon with that and instead keep saying, well, Chinese governance makes it easier to do repression.
I mean,
while simultaneously getting mad whenever I talk about, like, well, there are forms of repression that are evolving.
You're getting far away from the discussion, Hasan. The actual point of the conversation was something else entirely.
You always run the risk of the glass house. We're all aware. We all do this. Okay, we're all in media. But seriously, there are some shows where you really you're not encumbered. You're actually helped by having a pea brain. And I think this is one of those shows where you repeat the bromides and you just kind of keep talking about, as if it's a sign of profundity rather than, the opposite, that you don't have to take your listeners very far. They want you to wrap everything back around to the same place every single time. And you make your guest kind of, miserable in the process, and they enjoy that. I mean, I think that seems like this kind of show.
Yeah, the main point of contention here is that I'm moving further and further away from a manageable position that he wants to develop, which is that China is bad. Yes. And in a unique bad way, as opposed to the United States of America, which is good. When America does bad things, they were trying to do good, but they ended up failing. When China's doing bad things, it is deliberate. Correct. The same dynamic that exists in communism killed 100 quintillion people due to famines at a time when famines were commonplace due to a sequence of like mistakes, mismanagement,
and which
all
also
this
occurred
stuff.
under the British Empire to an even higher degree.
But also that was good,
right?
Okay,
because it developed India.
And number two, the current global capitalist order that creates 14 million people, 14 million deaths a year at a time of surplus and abundance of food supply. That's actually due to the individual failures of people not picking themselves up by their bootstraps. Obviously, a skill issue.
Could I get in on a toothpick?
Yeah. There you go.
statements about a highly controversial issue today. We have the same thing in our country where people are being sent to prison for tweets that they've done, right? Left and right. We've got Palestine Action on the left. We've got right-wing people criticizing immigration. So I agree with you. The direction of travel in the West in terms of freedom of expression is not good. And I've made that point in my book and elsewhere. But that is not the same as what the point we're trying to make, which is the system of government you are open to, based on our discussion today at least, inevitably leads to authoritarianism, which inevitably leads to repression on a scale that a Western country won't imagine. Isn't that's the reason that a lot of people are very worried about people like you who say they're open to communism. We all know smartphones are...
That's the PBD model.
Yeah.
Like this video?
Case with the ARP phone.
Here, I'll try to put a nice button on it, okay? The reason why the United States of America and countries that are under the security apparatus, the global security umbrella of the United States of America, have had much more success with liberal democracy as opposed to all these other countries that are not under the immediate security umbrella, is because it's been the domineering force around the globe, especially after the end of the Cold War, but even during the Cold War, it was a dominant force on the planet.
Sure.
When you are the dominant force, you get to have these freedoms. Your people get to have these freedoms. Your people get to say whatever they want because they're not a threat, right? I would be more of a threat in the respective nation that I'm in if they don't have that same level of security. And that is the reason why I'm very fearful, because as America's power on the global stage is waning, we are going to see more direct authoritarianism coming from Western nations as liberalism decays, as it did in the 20s and the 30s. And what came after that was a wave of fascism. Now, fascism at that time was seen as a revolutionary thing. It was seen as a new thing. In many instances, fascists were actually fashioning themselves as though they were like a different kind of socialist, even though they were mostly killing socialists and had their beef with socialists. And then they were able to align with liberals eventually and become the domineering authoritarian forces. And I think you guys wouldn't disagree with me that, like, you know, Italy's Mussolini and Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany were ruthless fascist forms of governance where there was unimaginable repression. My fear is that is where capitalism inevitably leads.
Why?
If left unaddressed, because capitalism is always going to deteriorate. It's slowly going to improve material conditions as opposed to feudalism. It's a far better system, for sure. It's far better than monarchies, right? I agree. But there will come a point where it outlives its usefulness, and those who own the capital, the owners of capital, will have to make a decision. There's too much instability. There's too much chaos. We need to restore order. And if they can't do that through liberal democracy, at least historically, especially when there is a counterbalance, revolutionary socialism out there that they are genuinely fearful of, work stoppages happening all around, and the flows of capital being disrupted, and profit margins are threatened, they end up finding fascism to be that domineering force that restores the law and order, so that people are still working in the factories, and any kind of dissent is.
How much did China pay out? $17 billion. It was so sick.
They paid for lunch.
Yeah. China didn't pay for I paid China, bitch. I wish. Anytime people go like, so how did this come about? Like, did you, was this like government sponsored? I'm like, I wish it was government sponsored.
Can I ask you a question about this? You know, you're a public facing guy. You give these interviews, you know, even if it's sort of guys who you later find out are goofy, or maybe you know before you go in. This is very patient to me. Like, I could not have the same conversation over and over. They're coming back. What I'm saying is that this government will ultimately lead to authoritarian. Like, he says this every question, every time. You get it in the first question. You don't need 45 more minutes of it. At least I don't. Do you feel tried or tested? Do you try to find a way to, like, I don't know, make it interesting for yourself, or
no,
what?
Because this chat has conditioned me into constantly repeating myself without getting, because like these
That's
guys,
what everyone's saying. It's really funny.
Chat trained him. No, it's autism. No, but it is literally because like these guys are endlessly forgiving in comparison to the average anonymous chatter that comes in here to be like, I have identified that these are your weakness points after watching you for approximately 2,500 hours over the course of the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to try to exploit that by coming into the chat and trying to push your buttons over and over again, while simultaneously making it seem as though I'm actually coming from a place of like constructive criticism. So I've seen like the worst of the worst, where I will still turn around, take a deep breath, and try to explain to all of those people how they're wrong or whatever. So this conversation is pleasant in comparison to that.
I gotcha.
You know?
Yeah.
I just can't
directly and indirectly suppressed. And I fear that is where we're moving in the United States of America as America's global superpower status is threatened by the rise of China.
So your thesis is that as country, if a different country was dominant, it was a global hegemon, they would have more freedom for their citizens.
Yeah.
So you think the Chinese Communist Party would allow criticism of them if they were the dominant country in the West?
I think with respect to where they were in terms of the most maximalist position is the Cultural Revolution, right? Like if you look at the Cultural Revolution versus where China is now in terms of dissent, it's in comparison to the United States of America, yes, there's still heavy control over that sort of stuff. There's a lot of surveillance. Having said that, it has become far more tolerant as material conditions have improved. And that's my main thesis is that countries...
Do you think that's a decent way to analyze the situation? Saying that the Chinese form of Chinese governance has actually become much less aggressive and much less heavy-handed in many instances over the course of the last couple of decades, especially.
Well, and also where it's gotten most touchy is directly tied to the geopolitical competition that our country is currently engaged with their country. And that's one of the, I think it's directly related to your point about material conditions improving and that laying the foundations for, an improvement in public, loosened controls and discourse. I would also say that, the other piece of it is lessening the stakes of world competition. And not making it this existential this existential issue. It would absolutely also help free that space up.
You're a massive liberal, Hasan. You don't explain shit when you have to deal with actual leftists. You start to get heated to gaslight viewers that take meaningful logical extension of what you advocate through your aesthetics. Yes. This is a revolutionary.
Absolutely. I don't even, that's word salad to me, but I'm just going to.
No. This is 100%. This is 100% a guy who's his name is Jakob's greatest soldier. So it's
right.
Most likely a fan of Bad Empanada, who is the real Maoist.
Right.
The one true Maoist in the chat. This sarcasm is your coping mechanism. Yes, you are right. You have thoroughly destroyed my worldview. You and the 8 friends that you have actually created the Marxist-Leninist revolutionary vanguard. You are ready for an armed takeover of the American government. You are going to literally walk in to the nearest military base right now with your AR-15s and overtake it. And I know you're going to do that. And Godspeed, soldier. The straw man is crazy. Okay. I guess you're a pussy then. That's what it seems like to me.
This is why we release a show with 10 episodes per year. Yeah, where there's no comments.
There's
section.
no literally.
At least that's why I will never open it up beyond that personally.
Yeah, you can be a leftist without giving your ass to the Democrats. But what if they throw dick around so good? Have you thought about that? I like that you said the straw man is crazy, and then you turned around and did an ad hominem. Ad hominem. What's your argument? Ad hominem. Anyway. I was going to say I gave up on constructive criticism after your third racist outburst, but somebody else built me to being hyperbolic. This is also the other reason why being a leftist is the most annoying thing on the planet, especially in this medium, because there's always critique to be had.
Is Enfant Door mean child of Jimmy Dore?
Yeah.
Door kid.
Yeah.
That's what that translates to.
Jimmy Dore's child.
Yeah. A secret Cold War project.
Regardless of their individual forms of governance, as long as they are advancing the material needs of the broadest subsect of the masses, will and become a domineering force on their own and have full sovereignty and full autonomy, they will inevitably become more tolerant to this kind of freedom, because this is the most successful way, I think, of making sure that the masses feel satisfied. Civil liberties is the most successful way that I think neoliberalism has become a hegemonic power beyond the endless militarism and whatnot. I think that is the reason why people feel the way that they do in the United States of America, in spite of all of the alarm bells that are ringing about how economic devastation is imminent, seemingly, or there's so much poverty and so much instability, and people still go, well, at least I got some freedoms, right? As opposed to not having those freedoms elsewhere. So that's my main thesis, is that if they improve material conditions, they have to inevitably allow more civil liberties, more social liberties.
So it's interesting what you've been saying about America, and that it's losing its power on the global stage. That is then reflected in more and more, shall we say, imbalanced chaos in the actual society itself. And we've kind of seen that in a way with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, with with Luigi Mangione. I found some of your comments really interesting about Luigi, and I'd love to talk to you about them. So you said, and correct me if I'm wrong, push back on me if I'm wrong, that you think that he's innocent and unfairly maligned.
The rest of this entire part is just me being like, yeah, like innocent until proven guilty. It's a joke, all this stuff. And he's like, well, explain the joke. What do you mean by the joke? And it's like, it's probably the least productive back and forth of all time. Whenever you go, explain the joke. And then you have to sit there and explain what a joke is. It's like, okay, good luck.
I think you come to that position, or something. If I'm correct.
Well, I mean, that's a meme for the most part. But,
okay.
But
what does it mean? It's a meme.
Yeah, look, what does that mean? What do you mean? It's a meme.
Some people don't think he did it. You know, I mean, they could have that. They could talk about that, I guess.
What is this? By the way, your Kirk debate is still scheduled. That's one person waiting. Scheduled for September 25th, 2025.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I meant to log out of that.
Yeah,
that's pretty funny.
Think he's...
Also, what is that photo of you?
We're gonna get rated really rated in literal terms.
No, dude. Have you seen the Kirkification? It's a completely out of control.
So wait, what's the situation?
Everyone's making fun of Charlie Kirk now.
So that just didn't stand up, I guess.
No,
societal pressure.
Not even a little
Not
bit.
even a bit. And because also, like, even the right-wing base likes to make fun. Actually, they are the people who mainly make fun of it.
The Fuentes guys. Right?
Yeah.
The Groypers went crazy over it. But also, I think it was like so heavy-handed and so fake. Like the way that the government tried to operate around it, that people immediately were like,
they tried to ban a talk show. Like, it's just such a dumb.
Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm pre-Bidening myself and saying I shouldn't say that. I'm going to keep that one to myself. It's
this guy waiting. When was the last time you even publicly debated anyone? You even canceled one because of them dying. Should do it out of irony. Wait, what?
I see what that's kind of a funny take.
Yeah. He doesn't debate. He just yells, cries, and blames Israel for everything, including his own abuse of his dog. I know Muslims find dogs dirty, but why even adopt if you're Hasan? Gonna abuse it? Insanity. Why do they always get like weirdly racialized with their commentary?
I can't imagine why.
It's a mystery to me. It's tough to say.
Yeah, 23 follower, 1 following guy. Yuck foo. Definitely a real guy. Like every pro-Israel account will be like, oh, this guy blames Israel for everything. Tuned in from Tel Aviv, Unit 8200, with like 7,000 different bots. Anyway, yeah, the rest of it is just like,
I mean, it looks
Luigi Mangione,
but this is their thoughts.
This is their where they come clean about the real thoughts on Hasan Piker.
Down with Hasan Piker. Now, it was early in the trip, so we weren't able, I think, because we hadn't spent as much time communicating with him, we did not go as hard at him.
Mm-hmm. What?
What's the look on the guy in the?
John Oliver.
I know, but it's like it's I guess split screen. Okay, I was because the effect was a little.
It does look like he's.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
It looks a little
like
funny.
He's distracted by something tasty in the corner.
Exactly. Like it just looks, but it's like, oh,
you were supposed to trigger him.
You were only supposed to blow the bloody doors off,
as we did with Dave. And I wish, in many ways, Hasan came after Dave because I think we probably would have handled that in a more robust way. But still, we had an interesting conversation in which he basically he didn't say the words, I'm a communist, but he's currently in China celebrating being given Mao's little red book. And he did say in our interview, I don't have a problem being called a communist or something like that.
Okay.
I don't understand why these guys think that, like...
So did they catch you or not?
Saying I'm a communist is like a scary thing. Like, is that really a thing in America? If you say you're a communist, people go, whoa, chill.
I don't know this ecosystem.
I also don't understand it because...
And they're not American.
I also don't understand it because it's like, first of all, in America, they say Nancy Pelosi's a communist.
Yeah.
And secondly, why are you making this distinction between socialism and communism where like you're fine with like it almost feels like they're fine with someone saying they're a socialist, but they're like communism is the same as like basically being a fascist, right? Like
this is where I check out.
Yeah, same. This is
I am trying to understand it, but like I don't know.
This is like I mean, I think part of it is that they had this conversation with you. There was no dramatic arc to the conversation. You essentially explained, you unburdened your political positions to them, etc. But like then they, I guess, like didn't feel like, I guess they need to come up with an explanation for why it wasn't them owning you. And this is what they've alighted
And they
upon.
kind of wanted to make it seem like they caught you, or they kind of wrung it out of you that you're
Yeah.
secretly a communist, even though they also said that you're currently publicly broadcasting from
Also,
China.
like you volunteer, like you. It's
which
like
they also said was a mixed economy and not a communist society. So I don't really know
so,
what
like,
they think
none
they're
of
doing.
that,
But
none of that makes sense.
No.
It doesn't. I don't understand it.
So that was pretty intense. And then
that happened.
Did you bet $4,000 on a horse, Hasan? No. 1,000 Hong Kong dollars is what I bet, which I don't know what it comes to US dollars, but I won 4,000 US dollars in the process.
You did make money from
dear, oh dear, oh dear. We went to San
I
Francisco.
did. Well, Hong Kong, two
Oh.
systems, one
Yeah,
country, two
sure.
systems.
Um,
Yeah. So technically, it was Hong Kong where
he
I
looks
made
like
the
Paul
money.
Scheer.
Yeah.
Go. And we recorded a very, very
That
good
fires
conversation with Owen McCabe, who runs one of their
Okay,
companies
so
there.
that's it.
That's
There's
it.
nothing else.
Okay.
They just said like, "Oh, we should have gone harder
We
on
should
Hasan,
have gone
but we
harder,
didn't."
but it was early in the trip. We were jet lagged, and we were also recording the interview on the surface of the sun
Yeah.
to mention, but we interviewed Hasan
because our
Piker.
location
Right.
scout.
He basically
is
says in the
blind.
episode, he doesn't say it in terms, but he's like,
Equal opportunity
I sort of
employers,
say, well, people call you a communist, isn't that? And he's like, yeah, I've got no problem. Like, when we interviewed him, we pushed back on stuff he said, because communism is a horrific ideology. And we talked
Not really.
He's really going for it.
What is this memory of this? Did we?
That's what I mean. This is why I kind of thought, oh, these guys are going to be like skeptic right wingers who are really just focused on the debate aspect. Like they want to do the kind of back and forth exchange marketplace of ideas. Because the way they're talking about communism, a horrific ideology, and all that. I mean, I'm sure people still feel this way, but it feels very 1994. You know. You know what I
Also,
mean?
what the fuck are they
Stodgy.
recording? Dad's study? Like,
Okay, this is a much less bright environment, though. To
I
be
mean,
fair.
I agree. No, I mean,
it's
but-
better lit. It's a better lit environment.
It's better lit, and it has like every reference book ever invented. Like
Well, it's also funny because it's on their side of the room.
Yeah,
Like
his
they
side
have
is
all the knowledge.
devoted book.
they can walk over to any one of those books and recite it, or not even have to open it. And then
Yeah.
the poor guest is just
yeah. Well, they you actually pull one of the books back, and it swivels.
Yeah.
and then you've been triggered.
well, they
talked
enter
about
the lab
our
of
family's
technology.
experiences and whatever. So my point is, comparing him to a kind of soft socialist who says, we shouldn't cancel comedians, we should focus on healthcare.
No, but he's not a soft.
Soft socialist. So, okay, we're learning the distinctions that they've made. They're saying soft socialism is canceling comedians, whereas I'm a hard communist because I don't know. I guess I want a mixed market economy of China.
It's such a weird little project, to just have to keep making these little distinctions and
Yeah.
repeat them.
But it's I tell
Wait,
you,
what does Dave Smith have to say?
but this
I'm curious what another person
what a human.
does when they hear this.
Wait, hold on. He said no. He's not a soft socialist.
I don't know
kind
who
of
this
soft
is.
socialist,
Dave Smith
family's
is like
experiences and whatever.
comedian Dave Smith. I guess all of these guys are technically comedian.
Wait,
Comedian. Yeah. That's
They're
what they were saying. These
comedians?
guys are apparently comedians.
That's real alt comedy.
I think
Sorry,
this is about
what?
I think this is about platforming Nick Fuentes. Oh, okay. Well, let's see.
So my point is, comparing him to a kind of soft socialist who says, we shouldn't cancel comedians, we should focus on healthcare.
No, but he's not a soft socialist. I mean, he's a hardcore, I would consider him a communist. He literally argues that private businesses should be abolished and that it should all be, every business should be run democratically.
But does he
or something
admire
like that.
Stalin? Does he said what we need
No,
is
no, no.
Stalin
Probably
policies in
not.
America?
Probably not, to
So
be fair.
that's the difference,
Okay,
right?
fair enough.
Wow. I'm a hard communist that does not admire Stalin. I mean, there's things that were admirable about Stalin, like what he did with the Nazis. I think that was pretty good.
Won a war.
Yeah, that was pretty admirable.
Great book, Stalin's Wars by
you can
Jeffrey
use-
Roberts.
Jeffrey Roberts, yeah.
Listen, you might disagree with Trotsky, but you can still admire all the goyim he slaughtered. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The what is it? 100 million Christian whites in Russia, or whatever the people say.
Those are the glory years.
Yeah, Lev Bronstein got one over on you guys, losers.
Yeah. Then you end up in front of the House Un-American Activities Committee.
Yeah, that's not so fun.
Yeah.
You can fall from grace.
Not so nice.
Not so good. Trotsky used to be a very, very good, brave general, but now he's
Falling out of favor.
The Fourth International is not looking so good. Let's just say that. They used to say very nasty things about me. Not so much anymore, though.
Many people are using his writing to create formative anti-communist text in the Western world.
Social chauvinism, been saying it for a very long time, actually.
He died like a dog.
Trotsky died. He was a big fat mess. Trotsky was a big fat mess.
Oh, I did a pro Maoist Trump impression when I was in China. This is similar.
I bet that was a hit.
Yeah, the longest march. Good march. Great general.
There's never been a longer one, folks. People keep saying there's never been a longer march.
Died like a dog in Mexico. Trotsky.
Never cared for Lin Biao.
Yeah, you could go places with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Maoist Trump is great.
I think Mao would have been deeply entertained by Trump meeting
I mean,
Trump.
JD Pandon is still one of my favorite pet names
Yeah.
for him.
Mao would make a joke like that. He'd be like, "Oh, you're doing it for us."
Yes, yeah.
You're doing it
Yeah.
for us.
Yes, yeah.
There's already a Chinese Trump, yeah, but he doesn't do like the Maoist Trump. You know, he just does like regular. He does a great Trump impersonation. Oh, is this the TikTok? Mao, great guy, very powerful, very tall too. Didn't know how tall he was. Did you guys know how tall Mao Zedong was?
He was
Yes,
tall.
yeah, he was
Yeah,
tall.
I had no idea until I saw his recreation at the Madame Tussauds. I didn't get to see the mausoleum, unfortunately. It was closed because 1.4 billion Chinese who dreamed to see the flag raising ceremony at Tiananmen Square was there in the morning.
Yeah.
Like very early. So didn't get to see it. I wouldn't expect it, but he was very tall. Very tall guy. Didn't like the birds. Don't quite get that part, but let me tell you, okay? The longest march, they're saying, I can't walk like that, but Mao, he was walking quite a bit, and he unified the country. Mao.
I do like that Trump when he's like talks about like, I'm not so skinny anymore. I'm not skinny.
Yeah.
He's
You
getting
wouldn't want
very
to.
confessional.
You wouldn't want to see my legs.
Very confessional these days.
Yeah. Well, you also saw the outfit that he wore outside talking to the press. He had like a scarf on. It was weird.
A scarf?
Yeah, or like a red. Like it was a thing. It was a whole thing, man. It was strange.
I can't actually. No, I can't picture it.
He's like becoming, more like the old gay man he was meant to be right before our very eyes.
Sure.
So this is it. This is what we got. It seems.
What a journey.
I've got
What a
no
road
problem
it's
with
been.
communism, Hasan Piker.
Mhm.
And yeah,